Good morning, everyone. This is Dr. Claire Broughton, and today I'll be discussing Chapter 4 on early biological perspectives on criminal behavior. Traditional biological theories versus U.S. modern biosocial theories. So when we look at early criminology, and even up until now, criminology has been slow to give weight and credence to biological theories. The reason is because criminology is based on or is an offshoot of sociology, and sociology primarily focuses on the environment or social factors when they try to explain human behavior. However, criminology today is interdisciplinary, and hence we draw from other disciplines such as biology and psychology. So what are the principles of biological theories? The early biological theories and even contemporary theories focus on the brain as a center of personality and a major determinant in controlling human behavior. If you look at early biological theories, the theories mostly focus on physical features, such as the shape of the skull or the shape of the human body, and heredity. They also look at whether or not, for example, feeble-mindedness or criminality is passed down from one generation to another. And they do this by looking at family trees or examining twin studies to determine whether or not twins reared apart are as similar as twins reared or brought up together. So let's look at this slide. This slide basically shows us that for early biological theories, as I mentioned, the brain is the organ of the mind and the locus of the personality. It means that your personality is determined by certain aspects of your brain. Another principle of biological theory is that the basic determinant of human behavior is constitutionally or genetically based. What do we mean by constitutionally based? It means that depending on your body type, for example, how you look, how your body, whether or not you're tall or you're muscular, it could mean that you are predisposed to commit crime. Genetically based means that you have a certain gene or you have a certain hormone in your body that also makes you predisposed to commit crime. The biological school was built on the scientific tradition of positivism. As a review and as I discussed in Chapter 3, positivism is associated with the belief that all valid knowledge is acquired only through observation. So positivist school of criminology focused on the empirical method, experiments, the scientific method, observing phenomena out in the real world, and measuring, quantifying, experimenting with populations in order to come up with scientific data. The key principles of the positivist school is social determinism and the application of scientific techniques to the study of crime. So the one early biological theory looked at physical features, and this is the field of phrenology or craniology, which is basically the study of the shape of the head to determine anatomical correlates of human behavior. The first criminologist to do this was Franz Gall, who was a European phrenologist, and he measured the skull. Johann Spurzheim, his student, brought phrenology to the United States. Now, in the Italian school, Cesare Lombroso developed the concept of atavism. So what is atavism? Atavism is basically a feature or a characteristic of an individual wherein he has physical features that resemble more primitive stages of civilization as opposed to modern man. So for example, he may look more like a primitive species than modern man, and because of this feature he is more predisposed to criminality. The stigmata of degeneration is basically what I just explained. If the individual has physical features that are primitive, then it may be indicative of criminality. The Italian school also led to the rise of criminal anthropology, wherein they studied the relationship between physical characteristics and criminality. So Lombroso's categories of offenders are three. First, there are the atavists, who are born criminals. Then you have the insane, and then you have the criminaloids. The criminaloids are not atavists. They are occasional criminals who are led into crime by environmental influences. So we can see that Lombroso did account for social influences in the committing of crime. And this he categorized as criminaloids. Now let's look at this slide. Okay, so here are some examples of what he considers as criminals because of the shape of their head, the shape of their skull, for example, and also other physical features such as the shape of the nose, the ears, the jaw, and the lips. Lombroso's theory was criticized by Goring, who did more extensive studies of not just criminals, but Goring examined populations of soldiers, students, and normal males, and he found that there really is no physical feature or shape of the skull that predicts criminality. So what are the atavistic features that, according to Lombroso, make you more prone to be a criminal? First, your nose is projected, hooked, or large. Second, your ears are long. Third, you have powerful jaws. Fourth, your cheekbones are wide. Fifth, you have well-developed teeth. Sixth, you have thin lips. And seventh, you have a threatening look. So if you have these features, Charles Lombroso says that you may be prone to criminality. Now let's look at these next slides, and on your own, let me know if you think that this person is a registered sex offender based on Lombroso's theory of atavism. So look at his physical features. Yeah, I'll leave you to look at the next few slides about this guy. Does he look like a sex offender? And this? Does this guy look like a sex offender? How about this guy? Okay, now that you have considered whether or not atavism is and Charles Lombroso's theory is valid, let's look at evaluations of atavism. Goring, as I mentioned, conducted his own study, and he said that atavism is not valid, it's not really accurate, so he debunked the thesis of atavism. However, Houghton, who is a subsequent criminologist, found that criminals are physiologically inferior to the general population. And as late as 2000, late as 2000, a Canadian study found that there are subtle physical abnormalities in the ears, tongue, and teeth associated with increased risk of behavioral and psychiatric problems among boys. The next theory is constitutional theory. A constitutional theory explains criminality with respect to the offender's body type, genetics, or external observable physical characteristics. The first theorist of constitutional study of criminology is Kretschmer, and he proposed a relationship between body type or body build and personality type. So this is his theory. He had three categories. Dysplastics. So the dysplastics are thin, lean, and according to Kretschmer, these individuals are emotional, out of control, and tend to commit sexual offenses or crimes of passion. On the other hand, cycloids are heavyset, have a soft body, they are round. According to Kretschmer, they commit nonviolent property crimes. And finally, you have the schizoid, who are athletic and muscular, and according to Kretschmer, they commit violent crimes. Sheldon followed Kretschmer, and he also made his own typology. And I think we're more familiar with Sheldon's typology. We have the endomorph, mesomorph, ectomorph, and the balanced type. Again, for Sheldon's endomorph, the endomorphs are soft and round. Okay, the person tends to be overweight and has a large stomach. The ectomorph is thin and fragile, long and slender with poorly muscled extremities and delicate bones. And then you have the athletic and muscular, who are somatic structures are in the where the somatic structures are in the ascendancy. This person has larger bones and considerable muscle mass. And then you have the balanced type. According to Sheldon, the mesomorph would be the one who is more prone to crime or criminality. Now, another group of theorists look at criminal families. They looked at heredity and they conducted systematic studies of heredity based on behavioral genetics. One such person was Galton. Some studies on heredity are the Duke family tree, conducted by Dugdale and Estabrook, and the Kallikak family, conducted by Goddard. So let's look at the Duke family tree. The Duke family tree um, occurred because Max, who was a Dutch immigrant, married into the Duke family of girls. His daughter Ada became what is considered as the mother of criminals. And you will see that the Duke family, which is the green tree on the right of the diagram, were basically the family line had a lot of criminals. So 310 died as paupers, 150 as criminals, 7 as murderers, 100 plus as drunks, and 190 as prostitutes. The researcher who conducted the study on the Jukes family looked at a law-abiding family, the Jonathan Edwards, and looked at whether or not, again, being a law-abiding and being normal and non-criminal was hereditary. So Jonathan Edwards, his family theory showed that behavior, criminality, and or non-criminality was hereditary. So out of the Edwards line, you could see that there were 13 college presidents, 65 college professors, 75 military officers, 80 public servants, 60 authors, doctors, judges, pastors, lawyers, 3 U.S. senators, and a vice president. So you can see how admirable, how impressive the Edwards family tree is compared to the Jukes family tree. Now let's look at the Kallikak family tree again to see whether or not criminality or feeble-mindedness was hereditary. This study looked at the legitimate branch of Martin Kallikak versus the illegitimate branch of his family tree. So Martin Kallikak was a soldier during the Revolutionary War. During the war, he had an affair with a nameless feeble-minded girl, as you can see in the family tree, but he did not marry her. After the war, he married a law-abiding and respectable woman, and out of this, he had the legitimate line, which would be on the left side of your screen of the family tree. So if you look at his family tree with a lawful wife, N means normal, okay? So all of his descendants were normal. But if you look at the right side of the tree, you will see that Martin Jr. was feeble-minded, Millard was feeble-minded, Nathan was feeble-minded, Old Sal, Jemima, Old Moll, they were all feeble-minded. So according to researcher on his family tree, again, this legitimizes the theory that feeble-mindedness and criminality was hereditary or is hereditary. So this gave rise to eugenic criminology, wherein they believe that the root causes of criminality were passed down in the form of bad genes. The eugenics movement occurred from 1920s to 1930s and culminated in the U.S. Supreme Court decision of Buck v. Bell. I suggest you watch the video that I uploaded on Blackboard. In this case, in Buck v. Bell, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld a Virginia statute permitting sterilization. In the words of Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, it is better for all the world if, instead of waiting to execute degenerate offspring for a crime or let them starve for their imbecility, society can prevent those who are manifestly unfit from continuing their kind. 3 generations of imbeciles are enough. So this was justification for forced sterilization in Virginia because they wanted to take preventive measures to prevent individuals from passing unfit or degenerate genes. Now, the next study was on the XYY supermale. Jacobs conducted a research in 1965 that led to the concept of supermale who had an extra Y chromosome. So, according to Jacobs, the supermale is potentially violent. Now, this study led to the attempted use of the super XYY male in court as a defense against crime because you can use as a defense in crime things such as insanity or medical illness. For example, Richard Speck used the defense that he was an XYY supermale when he was charged in court for killing 8 Chicago nursing students in 1966. He was unsuccessful and he was convicted. Now, recent research has concluded that XYY men are not more violent than other men. Okay, what are supermale characteristics? They are taller than average. They have less than average intelligence. They are overrepresented in prisons and mental hospitals, and families have higher than average history of crime and mental illness. Now, the next set of studies look at twin studies and heredity. So twin studies, what do? They compare dizygotic and monozygotic twins to determine the role of heredity in crime causation. Dizygotic twins or DZ twins are fraternal twins. They are born from different fertilized eggs, but they share the same womb. Whereas monozygotic twins or MZ twins are identical twins. They are born from a single fertilized egg that split. Okay, so research supports relationship between heredity and risk of criminality. The Minnesota twin family study found that monozygotic twins reared apart are about as similar as those reared together. A recent meta-analysis of 51 research publications showed that 41 of behavioral problems are due to genetics and 59% are due to environmental influences. Now, according to the biological school of criminology or the biological theorists, human aggression has biological roots. If you look at Charles Darwin, for example, in his evolution of the species and natural selection, he predicts that interspecies aggression favors the strongest and best animals in the reproductive process. That's why he has the theory of natural selection or survival of the fittest. Now, Konrad Lorenz states that human aggression serves other purposes but takes on covert forms. Okay. Sociobiology was introduced by Wilson in 1975, and it is basically the systematic study of the biological basis of social behavior. So here you combine biological theories of crime in the study of criminal phenomenon. Now, they explain that the primary determinant of behavior is the need to ensure survival or continuity of genetic material throughout generations. Think about Darwin's survival of the fittest. They also explain that altruism facilitates the continuity of the gene pool, and territoriality explains both intergroup aggression and intragroup aggression. What are the criticisms of sociobiology? It fails to consider the significance of culture, social learning, and individual experience. It is fundamentally wrong in its depiction of basic human nature, and it rationalizes labeling, and stigmatization of minorities. Another critique is that it disregards the role of free will in human behavior. So according to biological theories of crime, your actions is determined by your personality and your genetics. You don't have free will to stop your actions or to determine the course of conduct that you would take. Another criticism is that crime is a social construct and its meaning varies over time and place. So here, again, early biological theories failed to take into account social and environmental influences. Okay. Thank you very much for listening to my lecture. I hope you learned a lot. please watch the videos that I uploaded on Blackboard. Thank you and have a good day.